Are you ready to film?
I'll take that as a no. Didn't we do a vampire story in the first movie? We begin outside Las Vegas, where some much-needed road construction is happening.
May 2nd, 8:15 p.m. Airline stewardess Elena Munoz missed the detour sign and blew a steel-belted radial on a jagged rock. She cursed the power of advertising.
I saw this episode with my dad when it aired. He snorted and said if she blew a steel-belted radial on a jagged rock, she needed to take the tire back to the shop and do something rather rude with it. And you can tell it's not the 60s anymore because the woman knows how to change a tire. What? She wants to help you with the tire. The police will come back and find nothing out of the ordinary. They'll write Ms. Munoz off as another nutcase.
In Chicago, it was the hottest, muggiest spring anyone could remember. An old reporter buddy of mine from Las Vegas had stopped in to collect an old debt from me. I paid off, and Jim the Swede Braitovsky, now known as James Bright and moving up in the world, told me something that made me forget the hot weather.
I don't know what I can say about Larry Storch except these nincompoops had him on set and only used him for one scene. Is there a clinical name for what's wrong with that?
3 deaths so far. And that's the way the police out there are handling it.
Yeah, all the careful words that aren't really words and the blank stares, yeah, I know.
The lid is on the pot, but you can sure smell something cooking.
All in Vegas.
No. West. Erie, Good Spring.
Too bad he's a big shot anchorman in Cincinnati now, or he'd be all over this story. He came here because he knew it's the kind of story Kolchak likes, and to collect his money. The word is, all the bodies were drained of blood.
Mr. Vincenzo.
Yeah.
This just came in over the wire. New York wants somebody from this office to go to Los Angeles.
Why? What for?
To do a piece on Metamira, the 15-year-old guru.
Guru? My budget doesn't allow for junkets all over the country on a whim.
A whim? This is something big. He is getting married.
Kolchak really wants to hop out to Vegas and check this story out, and he just found his excuse. All 4 reporters in the Los Angeles office are in the hospital thanks to a car accident, and the big bosses in New York want Tony to send one of his people to cover this guy. Updike is really bucking for the assignment.
I could go. I'm not that busy.
Carl.
Oh, no, not me, Tony. No. I'm in it up to my eyeballs right here.
Carl, do you mind if I make the decisions on the utilization of manpower around here?
Whatever you say, Tony.
I have read a few articles on transcendental meditation, and I feel I could handle the story pretty well.
Carl has Vincenzo nibbling the bait. It's time to set the hook.
What books you read, Ron? The Murty book, the Harrison Lopato work, the A Sense of Self by Sikney Obandi?
Just the Murty book, and some articles. I don't know the others.
Uh-huh. Well, the Murty book is fine, Tony. It's just fine. It'll give him enough information, knowledge to write the story. It's superficial, but enough.
Carl, I want you to go.
Remember before when I talked about how Vincenzo plays Kolchak? Yeah, they take turns.
May 6, 11:15 p.m. Los Angeles' fabled Sunset Strip. While I was dozing on a cross-country flight, Catherine Rollins, 25, was stopped on the street by someone she hadn't seen in 3 years. A lot had changed in 3 years. A whole lot.
Then again, with guys, some things never change. Typical guy. Says he likes it rough, then changes his mind when you drain all his blood.
The same night, 12:30 a.m., Linda Courtney returned home early with a splitting headache to the apartment she shared.
So Catherine Rawlings is our vampire. Nobody knows that but her so far.
It is believed that Mitchell fell asleep in the auto and then succumbed to the high desert temperatures which sometimes reach 125 degrees at midday. At Barstow, deputies stated, Mitchell's body was in a severely
Operator, cancel that
dehydrated condition. Vital fluids all but gone.
That's the same story they used with the 4 LA reporters, and he's not buying it. Off to Barstow to try and get more information.
Listen, tell me, Mr. Sample, what time does the coroner think that Mr. Mitchell died?
Oh, I'd say about 5:30 a.m. I think he lost consciousness way before that.
Beautiful country you got up here, you know, just gorgeous. Gorgeous country. Fresh, clean air, bright sunshine.
Yeah, it's very beautiful, very beautiful.
It is indeed. Tell me, what time does the sun come up around here?
He'd like to know because he thinks Mr. Mitchell was murdered right around sunup. The sheriff says, "Who said he was murdered?" I say he died of exposure.
You know, Mitchell done stole that car in Vegas. Then he decided to repaint it, and that's why he taped the windows.
Where did he repaint it, huh? On the inside? I mean, that's where the windows are taped. On the inside.
You're one of the fellas who likes to hear himself talk, ain't you?
I grew up hearing a lot of jokes about Barstow. It's a small city pretty much in the middle of nowhere. It's hot and dry. There's some military stuff there, but otherwise, let's put it this way. I once heard an ultra-conservative Baptist preacher with a heavy Mississippi accent say living there was almost like going to hell.
Tell me, did Mr. Mitchell have a couple of puncture marks on his throat, like fang marks?
You know the last nosy fellow who come through Barstow? Somebody done come out and punctured all his tires.
That's Little Town Hick Sheriff, or yes, he did. He can't afford new tires, so he'll head back to LA to try and get the story on this guru for Vincenzo while he figures out what to do next.
Of course, if this is too small for you, you might look at the Basil Rathbone. Excuse me. You were late. We were expecting the termite inspection this morning.
Well, late I am, but termite inspector I'm not. Although I have been known to bug a few people.
California has required termite inspections on all houses that change hands for as long as I can remember. Usually any termite damage that has to be repaired comes out of the sale price when the deal is closed. It was just how it was done, and the first time I bought a house in a different state, I was surprised that the question never came up. Granted, the house was in Wyoming, where it's way too cold for humans, much less termites.
It's a dandy buy at $525,500. It has 8 bedrooms, 4.5 baths. All of the fireplaces are made out of Etruscan marble, and the floors are quarry tile.
No, wait a minute. I'm not looking for a house.
No, you don't have that buyer look.
She's a realtor. She sold this house to the guru some time ago, and now she's selling it for him. Kolchak isn't sure what to do with 1 bedroom, never mind 8.
No, I'm looking for a Matamara. I think I missed him.
Indeed.
Oh, you must be Mr. Shankar. My name is Kolchak. We had an appointment.
Yes, we did. And I told them that if you wish to speak with my most perfect master, you should be here by noon of today.
Well, I was delayed. Unavoidably delayed. But I still must meet with a Matamara.
Just as your delay was unavoidable, so shall be your disappointment.
He already left, and he won't be back. Kolchak blew it. He introduces himself to the realtor and explains his dilemma.
But isn't that something? You know, I took journalism at North Carolina State, and then I was a reporter for a while with the Greensboro Republican. Then I had a bad marriage, and it all ended. Here I am. My name is Faye Kruger.
Hello, Faye Kruger.
Nice story. Where's the door?
Well, I was sent out here to get a story on transcendental meditation, but I'm not too much interested in the subject anyway.
Well, you should be. It's fascinating.
She's had extensive conversations with the man himself, and she has a background in journalism. Kolchak just figured out how to get his story.
I'll proof what you write, of course, and I'll correct any little kind of mistake you may make and send it on, and then you sign my byline to it and send it on back to Chicago.
Sign your byline?
Yeah, sure. Oh, just at first, of course. I mean, after they see how really good you are, why, I'll use every bit of influence I have on my boss to get you a job as a syndicated columnist.
If she's selling $500,000 houses like that one, I have a feeling she's doing fine in real estate. While they're talking, a report comes over the radio about more murders. Police have a pair of suspects in custody, and a Lieutenant Mateo is giving a press conference.
Acting on tips furnished by police informants, we arrested the 2 suspects a few hours ago.
Oh, I'm terribly sorry, man.
Now, these two...
The door on the left. Yes, I... Excuse me, I'm late. I'm sorry. Thank you.
The two suspects, both, are admitted members of the Dark Star Coven.
Coven, you mean. They're self-described devil worshippers.
How do you explain the loss of blood in the victims?
That information has already been furnished and on the air, hasn't it? We're on to other things, Mr.
You mean by the suction device found in the possession of the suspects? Seems to me the thing like that'd take a long time, wouldn't it?
It wouldn't be unusual for somebody like them to have such a machine. Siphon a little blood off yourself or somebody else, have your little ritual, go back to watching cartoons. Kolchak raises a good point, and the others know it.
Lieutenant.
These people.
Lieutenant.
No, Lieutenant.
Yes. Lieutenant, why didn't they just take the bodies with them and drain them in the safety of their home where you caught them?
That makes sense.
Yeah, well, Lieutenant.
You really believe that the suspects hung around the murder scene all that time?
These people don't have much presence of mind.
It's pathological. When Kolchak sees a can of worms, he has to open it. He asks about marks on the body, the others start asking where the suction machine was attached, and then Kolchak pipes up and uses the V word, whereupon the interview is over. And the lieutenant never did answer the questions about marks on the body.
Carl, when you use its, as in oft times loses its own charm, do you put the apostrophe before or after the S?
Neither. Possessive its doesn't have an apostrophe. I can't help myself.
Oft? Oft times?
Alabama Mateo, Unit 1 Bacon, Nevada, checking out. We're at 3200 Windsor Plates. We'll be away from the unit 45 minutes to an hour. Code 27.
10-4, copy.
When are you going to proofread this?
Well, why don't you proofread it and put it on the wires, okay?
That should be good. He heads over to the apartment where the people were killed.
Hey. What's your name?
Carl Kolchak.
What are you doing here?
I'm a reporter with the INS in Chicago.
Yeah, well, we have enough homegrown reporters. Your help is not needed.
Well, I think you do need some help. You got two suspects down in jail, yet here you are at the scene of the murder, fretting in this apartment that your department has gone over with a fine-tooth comb.
He'd like to know why the lieutenant arrested two suspects, then went to examine the scene. He says, your two people were killed by a real live vampire.
One of the reasons I went into police work is because I thought I'd meet all kinds of people, you know, interesting people. That's the truth. But you're not interesting. You're just idiotic.
No, I spoke to that deputy sheriff up in Barstow. I asked him if there were puncture marks in the neck of the victims up there. You know what he said? He denied it completely.
Well, sure, that proves... What does it prove again? Tell him the guy threatened you, knothead.
And yet the truth was hanging out all over his face. Now, come on, Lieutenant. You know and I know that Linda Kortner and her boyfriend here in this apartment both had puncture marks on their throats.
And the only known suction machine in the area is in your evidence lockup. Mateo doesn't want to hear any of it. In fact, he wants Kolchak out of town. I'm struck by how young William Daniels is in this. I got to know him when he was Dr. Mark Craig on St. Elsewhere, and of course he was the voice of Kit in Knight Rider, one of the most awesome shows of all time. Today, I'm afraid he's just the latest in a parade of stereotype police officials that Kolchak has to deal with.
You the manager?
Yeah, and the painter, and the plumber, and the gardener.
Did you know Linda Kortner?
He can't explain why all the women's clothes and other articles are missing because Linda had a lot of stuff. She needed it for her job. She did something or other for Grace's catering service.
My wife overheard her talking about doing some stunts.
Stunts? Are you sure she didn't say tricks?
No, the reason she made that mistake is because her sister went out of town to go into show business, and we naturally assumed that
She went out of town and went into show business. Where?
Las Vegas. Yeah.
Las Vegas.
Yeah, she was going to be a showgirl, but then she disappeared. And...
Most likely, her sister was also doing stunts in Vegas when she disappeared. Her name was Catherine, but not Kortner. The family name was Rawlings. Kolchak got a list of missing persons from Vegas, and she's on it.
May 8th, 8:10 p.m. Ichabod Grace, businessman, entrepreneur, was about to make an investment. More of a takeover than a merger.
I've never understood why anyone ever named their son Ichabod. The name comes from the first book of Samuel in the Bible. Eli is the high priest, he's old and feeble, and his sons are corrupt. The army is going out to fight the Philistines, and they decide if they take the Ark of the Covenant with them, they're sure to win. Doesn't exactly turn out that way. Eli and his son Phineas both die, and the Philistines capture the Ark. Phineas's pregnant wife goes into labor when she hears the news, and when the baby is born, she names him Ichabod, which means the glory is gone. Today she'd be saying something like, "Have you met my son? All is lost. This is his brother, Hopeless. Say hello, boys."
Ichabod's terms were fair, his pitch persuasive. Ichabod thought he had added another filly to his stable of trotters. In Ichabod's parlance, his new acquisition was called a fox. He had no way of knowing she was actually more closely related to the bat.
One of the funnest parts of this job is learning things about people I thought I knew. I grew up watching Jan Murray as a game show host, and as far as I knew, that was his thing. I did not know he spent years as a stand-up comedian, and it wasn't until later that he went into television and fell into the game show circuit. In fact, he was the first professional comedian to host a game show and opened the door for many more. But he sure isn't doing comedy here. Back at the room, Vincenzo has some questions about Carl's story on the Guru.
Does Mira's mansion really have copper pipes throughout?
Copper pipes?
Yes, plumbing.
But yes, Tony, some of these old mansions, they do have copper pipes.
Fascinating. And they also have low-maintenance grounds, a Spanish tile roof, and a separate adobe cabana?
Not only that, Faye can make you a great deal on the place. Yes, the realtor couldn't help throwing in an ad for the house. While she works on a rewrite, he calls Grace's catering service.
Yeah, I'd like to speak to Catherine Rollins.
She's not in right now. I could take a message.
Ask her where she's been for the past 3 years. He arranges for her to come to the room later that evening. He sends Faye away with the promise that they'll pick it up again tomorrow.
Oh, Faye, could you lend me your lipstick?
Is there something you'd like to talk about?
Here's what he wants it for. He could have done that with a pencil, or a pen, or carved it with a knife. There were lots of ways to do that without making her think he's gone Hollywood. It's the moment of truth. The girl is here.
All right, which freako scene is this?
That's not Catherine. Ichabod sent her on another gig at the last minute and sent this girl instead.
And where do I find Catherine? Where does she live, you know?
Oh, that creep doesn't talk to anybody. I don't know anything about her except she uses 4 pounds of pancake and rouge on her face, and guys pay for that.
Yeah, well, she has to use it. She's not well.
It depends on when she ate last. Kind of like a diabetic, except not.
Oh.
Where do I find Ichabod?
You're gonna find him hopping mad when he hears I came up here and didn't get paid. $200, sweet cheeks.
$200?
Welcome to Hollywood, sailor.
Ichabod isn't sure what to make of this guy.
Yeah, Linda Courtney used to work for you, is that right?
Maybe, so what?
Yeah, well, Catherine Rollins killed her.
You're nuts. Why would she want to do a thing like that?
Well, Catherine Rollins was Linda Courtney's sister. She had reasons that even you wouldn't understand.
A little side-by-side comparison, and he's convinced. He sent Catherine to see a football player for the Rams, a guy they call Stalker.
10:43 p.m. Tackle Hugo Maltz and the famous Rams Godzilla gang arrived at the home of Stacker Shoemaker to give their amorous teammate what Maltz had called one hellacious surprise. The surprise was all theirs.
Kolchak creates a makeshift cross and she takes off. The police find 4 dead football players, Kolchak, and a story Mateo doesn't even want to hear.
Hi, can I come in?
Oh, yeah, sure. Oh, there's your lipstick.
Thank you. How'd you make out?
Terrific.
You're not leaving now, are you?
Well, it's either now or after 12 years in San Quentin. Personally, I'd prefer now.
Oh, Mateo made it clear he can get out of town or he can go to prison for the murder of those football players. She wants to talk about the story, but he says, you write it. You have real potential. She says, I don't think so. I'm going back to real estate.
Real estate? Do companies out here rent as well as sell houses?
Well, sure, we've got a lot of them.
Yeah. How would a person find out if a house had been rented or sold, purchased or bought or leased in the last week or two?
Well, I could look in multiple listings. It covers every broker in town, but it'd take a while.
The multiple listing service has a long history. Before it, each realty had their own listings for houses, apartments, rentals, all the things realtors deal with. There might be a place right across the street from your listing that was perfect for your buyer, but it was another realtor's listing. You lost the sale. Conversely, your place might be perfect for Realtor 3's buyer, but they can't sell it to them because it's your listing. In the late 1800s, realtors all over the country got together and agreed to share information about their listings. If I sold your listing or you sold Joe Doe's listing, the two realtors would split the commission. It's a literal case of you scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. The MLS is one of the few such entities that worked exactly as intended. An area would create a sort of clearinghouse to gather the listings, publish them in ring binders, and send them out to all the realtors at regular intervals. I think we got them weekly in my dad's office. That way, everybody in town could keep up with all of the available houses, and through massive cooperation, the buyers were the real winners. It's all digital now, but the multiple listing service continues to provide this service all over the country, and most every honest realtor for the past 100 years or so has benefited from it. The reason Faye says it'll take some time to track this down is because it's all on paper, and there's no search algorithm you can program into your fingers.
It turned out that Los Angeles has nearly as many real estate offices as it has traffic jams.
Hey, if you found out you could live on Easy Street by selling 2 houses a year, you might also give it a try.
By the time Catherine Rollins' house had been located, the sun had gone down, and if I waited for daylight, I'd find myself on an eastbound jet compliments of the police. And Catherine would be thousands of miles behind me, slumbering, waiting for the next in an endless number of dark, quiet nights.
And that's his biggest problem. He had hoped to catch Catherine during the day when she was vulnerable. Now he'll have to take his chances and hope all the stuff he brought will keep her from getting up close and personal.
The multiple listings had described Catherine's house as a baronial retreat. It was actually a decayed, turn-of-the-century mansion awaiting to be replaced by a condominium, and it would appeal to a special type of client, someone unconcerned with earthly comforts.
He said it's supposed to be torn down and replaced. Judging by that gas can, I think he's volunteering to help with demolition.
And it was secluded. Who would go near it? Only a vampire, or some fool looking for her.
At least he knows himself very well. And I'm still confused about the gas can because now he's leaving it behind. I'm pretty sure I invaded that castle once in a Call of Duty game. Can't remember which one, though. The place is properly spooky, with junk all over the place that he runs into, black cats screeching and running away, the whole bit. It's stereotype, but by now we're all so into the story we don't even notice. What he saw inside was truly terrifying. That's after his plane leaves. What to do, what to do. He needs to find a way in and try to set a trap for her. Yeah, you don't want to lose your grip and straddle that stuff. It could put a damper on your whole day. He keeps thinking he hears something out there, but it's probably just the cat. It's a really big cat. What? People named Catherine often go by cat, so it counts. He has the advantage. If he can push her back against a wall, he should be able to stake her. But he can't do that yet. We have more runtime to fill. And besides, we still don't know what the gas can is for. Oh man, I have a feeling you could not get away with a scene like that today, and with good reason. We saw him casually looking at that big cross up on the hill, and now we know what he had in mind. But with the rise of the Klan, neo-Nazis, Proud Boys, and all the other racist movements, I suspect today he'd have to string it with LED Christmas lights or something. But then he couldn't do this. I don't think a ring of LEDs would have held her, but at least she has a theme song now.
I fell into a burning ring of fire.
The giant cross has weakened her to the point where she can't move. Time for Kolchak to finish this. I don't remember anything in vampire folklore that says a bigger cross is better, but remember, this is a guy show. Guys are always concerned about how big things are.
Mateo had a detective tailing me, but he lost me about the time Catherine found me. I wasn't particularly hard to find after that. It was just a question of following the light. I was told it could be seen from the Sunset Strip, West Los Angeles, and Malibu.
Nothing to say, Lieutenant? No snide remarks, no derogatory names, no demands to get out of town and stop talking nonsense? He'll go through the motions of arresting Kolchak for murder, but everything will be dropped almost instantly. Well, except this.
It was a local landmark, so I had to pay for another one, and I didn't mind at all. I just couldn't think of a way to get it on the expense account.
Maybe he can threaten to tell the story unless Mateo splits the cost with him. While he was waiting for Mateo to kick him loose, he got a look at Catherine Rawlings' coroner's report.
I quote the coroner. The tissue structure of the individual appeared to be that of a female, species human, who had been dead at least 3 years. This is a medical conundrum for which I have no explanation.
And now we know why Mateo cut him loose. Present that in court and tell a jury he murdered someone who had been dead for 3 years? As if. No, Mateo went straight to a movie producer friend of his and said, "Have I got a pitch for you?" Achoo! 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 I knew you were in there, you little Dickens. Really bucking for the I can say assignment. Nobody knows that but her so far. Because he thinks Mr. Mitchell was murdered. Mr. Mitchell was murdered. I can say that. There's some military. He arranged. Okay, come on. All right, stop that. Oh, good grief! Come on. Your listing, or you show. It's your fault because you're not up here helping me.